Right now on the National Weather Desk, cold, snow, and ice continue to grip the nation. In Oregon, an ice storm turns deadly while snow closes major interstates. They're measuring snow by the foot again in Buffalo, while in Utah, 20 avalanches in 2 days have experts saying conditions are ripe for disaster. We'll explain why so much snow is falling right now and why rock salt won't work in bitter cold temperatures. And you'll get unique views of our winter weather from satellites and drones.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. More freezing rain could fall in Oregon today, less than a day after a deadly ice storm caused major problems. This is what neighborhoods looked like before ice turned to slush yesterday afternoon. The thick ice coated the street, driveways, cars, and trees. It also took down power lines. One of those lines fell on a parked car in Portland, killing 3 people inside and injuring a baby. Many roads were impassable. That included interstates like I-84, which was shut down for more than 30 hours in the Columbia River Gorge. It's now reopened, but as Victor Park explains, the problems are not over.
Truckers trying to head east out of Portland have nowhere to go. Patrick Fartkins is one of dozens who waited hours.
I just got the load heading to Utah, and my appointment time is day after tomorrow by 7 o'clock.
Are you gonna make it?
I don't think so.
Meanwhile, those living within the closure have been hunkering down.
I was at Safeway like the day before yesterday, and it was mayhem. So everyone basically was stocking up before the ice storm hit because no one wanted to be driving.
Marky Beck sent us this photo. It shows the icy conditions near her Hood River home.
This morning, we still pretty much had snow. And then this afternoon, it quickly switched to sleet.
They've been plowing the slush off where they can, laying down sand and salt and de-icer so that when temperatures rise, those things will activate.
Farther north in Washington, the storm wasn't ice, it was snow. This is what I-90 and Snoqualmie Pass looked like last night. The highway was shut down for a time, but even after it reopened, traffic was crawling, oftentimes moving at 5 miles an hour or less. Once it did reopen, chains were required on all vehicles. Even off the highway, Paul Rivera shows us the snow made travel difficult in several communities.
As some had to get ready to drive in this.
Having chains there's no replacement for it.
Then let's take a look at conditions in downtown Bellingham. If you look over here, this is what the road looks like in many places. You'll see snow and slush mixed in with some ice there on the ground, making for some tricky travel conditions.
It's been quite the busy day when you're looking at traffic-related issues.
Megan Peters, a spokesperson with the Bellingham Police Department, said their officers had been out all day helping drivers get unstuck on the roads. These photos they posted on social media showing just that.
If your car is not the best in these situations, it's probably best if you stay home.
At the time we'd spoken to them, police officials said they hadn't had to go to any major crashes. All of that can, however, change quickly as the temperatures drop and the ice sticks around.
On the East Coast, lake-effect snow is falling again in Buffalo and northern New York State. More than 2 feet fell in this latest round. Combine that with the snow that fell last weekend, this means many towns have seen more than 50 inches of snow since Saturday, and more snow is expected to fall today. All of the snow of the past week means 59% of the country is now covered by snow. Just 1 month ago, it was only 16%. And get this, the National Weather Service analysis found 8% of the South is snow covered. The average depth is just 1/10 of an inch, but that's still a remarkable number. And here's another impressive satellite view of the snowfall from earlier this week. It was taken as the sun rose on Tuesday. And this is an animation, so all the white you see not moving is snow on the ground. And it extends into Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. We'll zoom in on those states so you can really see the snowfall. And in this image, you can see cold and dry prevailing winds blowing over an unfrozen Lake Michigan. Almost instantaneously, it produces clouds and bands of lake-effect snow moving east. And this is what the lake-effect snow looked like from the ground. Meteorologist Joe Charlevoix posted this on his Facebook page. 10 to 15 inches of snow fell in less than 24 hours in Petoskey, Michigan. Syracuse meteorologist Violet Schreiber explains why so much of the country is seeing snow and extremely cold temperatures. and why in some places temperatures are so low that even salt treatments can't keep roads from icing over.
Well, this is due to the polar vortex. What is that? Well, it's a large area of colder air that's normally trapped at the poles due to a strong jet stream or fast-flowing area of wind. And a strong jet stream usually occurs when we have large differences in pressure, keeping the jet stream straighter and keeping that colder air trapped up north. But when our jet stream becomes weaker, it starts to wobble a little bit and allows that colder air to drop further south across the United States. And that's exactly what we saw over the past couple of days and will see for the next few days heading into this weekend. Getting cold enough here in central New York that it starts to cause some issues on the roadways, especially with our next batch of snow. And we all know once the snow falls and you start to get some tires rolling through it, it changes over to slush and eventually some icy spots, slippery conditions. Now, normally the DOT will put down some rock salt to try to melt this ice or at least keep ice from forming. But when the temperature is below 15 degrees like we're going to see this weekend, the salt really doesn't do a good job melting the ice. Normally, salt lowers the freezing point of water to about 15 degrees. But when the temperature is colder than that, it takes a lot more salt to do the job. Plus, it takes longer to melt. And with windy conditions this weekend, it's likely going to blow a lot of that salt off the roads. So drive accordingly, as we are expecting some icy road conditions heading into this weekend.
And this low pulling down that really cold air. Meteorologist Brian Vandergraff, as we look toward the end of the work week here, some wintry weather from the mid-Atlantic through the Northeast. Nothing heavy, but nonetheless will be impactful. And then that colder air, as mentioned before, continues to kind of just sink on in, and some really Arctic feels will be felt across the nation's heartland all the way through the Northeast. The good news is the longer trend does show a warmer pattern emerging as we head into the latter half of next week.
The heavy snow is causing problems in the Utah mountains. 20 avalanches were reported in just 2 days. This one shut down the road between Big Cottonwood Canyon yesterday afternoon, but the threat isn't going away. As Emma Riley explains, the current conditions are a recipe for disaster.
And right now, any avalanche you trigger, it's going to break deep, it's going to be dangerous, and it's going to fail on those weak layers that were created during the dry spell.
In the last couple of days, Utah Avalanche Center forecaster Craig Gordon says there have been numerous human-triggered avalanches in close calls. The avalanche threat lies in the dangerous snowpack.
Last weekend, it just got clobbered with dense, heavy, wind-drifted snow. It's strong snow on weak snow. We got to think not only about the snow we're riding in, but also the snow we're riding on.
But Gordon says it doesn't mean you can't enjoy the fresh snow.
What it does mean is we need to stay off of and out from under slopes that are about 30 degrees in steepness.
Over the next 4 to 5 days, there may be more winter weather piling on.
This is a kind of setup in our snowpack that doesn't heal itself. It doesn't go away overnight.
We have new video from that dramatic rescue of college students in Kentucky. They were camping when winter weather quickly moved in. They said they didn't expect so much snow to fall. State police sent a helicopter to fly them to safety. All 4 are safe and in good condition. Officials said this was one of the most dangerous rescues ever attempted in the Red River Gorge area. It appears Greenland is losing ice at an alarming rate. A new study found Greenland has lost 20% more ice than scientists previously thought. That could have a significant impact on ocean circulation patterns and sea level rise. Since 1985, the study found Greenland lost nearly 2,000 square miles of ice. If fully melted, the Greenland ice sheet would raise the global sea level by about 23 feet. Take a look at this video from Bolton, Mississippi, where a water storage tower overflowed, covering everything below it in ice because of the sub-freezing temperatures. A local news outlet reports the town's water operator believes a frozen tank level sensor led to the overflow. The tower started spilling over on Monday and reportedly was not shut down until yesterday afternoon. Sometimes all this stuff is gorgeous, though. Speaking of ice, we wanted to share this beautiful video in Arkansas. It shows Bridal Veil Falls, which, as you can see, is turning to ice in the freezing temperatures. And with temperatures staying cold until next week, this view isn't going away anytime soon. We thank Samuel Baggett Jr. for sharing this with meteorologist James Bryant in Little Rock. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, we'll head to the Great Lakes and find how the recent cold weather is impacting this year's ice fishing season. Plus, we look into why heavy snow isn't always good news for ski resorts.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
When it's bitterly cold, you might have to venture out in the elements, or you could be lucky enough to stay home. Either way, it's important to keep safety in mind. Adam Clements spoke to an expert in Cincinnati for some tips on what to do and not to do when it's frigid outside.
A little pre-planning goes a long way.
Stan Deimling has worked as a firefighter for more than 4 decades. When it comes to Arctic temps, he's seen it all.
Any fireground operation is a challenging work environment on the best of days. When you add the additional of extreme temperatures, you've added one more variable that you have to deal with.
He says outside of your primary home heating system, there are several do's and don'ts, starting with space heaters.
They can be used safely, but you got to do it the right way. Always keeping them at least 3 feet away from any combustible materials. It means plugging those directly into an outlet. You know, we see where those radiant heaters get plugged into one of those lightweight indoor extension cords, and if you look at the size of that cord, it's very thin. If you look at the size of the cord on the heater, it's very thick. So you should always plug your radiant heaters, your electric heaters, directly into an outlet, and only plug in one heater in an outlet into one circuit, or you're going to overload it.
And when it comes to other alternative sources for heating your home, Deimling says there are do's and don'ts, and then there are flat out don'ts.
Propane heaters, your stove, kerosene heaters. You know, if you look at every one of those, they have big warnings on that says use in a well-ventilated space. Well, it's got to be a well-ventilated space because you're producing large amounts of carbon monoxide when you're burning that fuel.
So not inside your house.
Not inside your house.
Lastly, Deimling says if you do have to head out of the house, make sure you plan ahead before you hit the road.
You want to make sure that you've checked all your fluids, check the air in your tires. You don't want your gas tank to ever get below half a tank. That way, if you get stranded, you still got time. Make sure you have a charged cell phone. You're going to want a blanket. You will probably want some food. Your body is going to work extremely hard and burn a lot of calories to try and keep you warm. So you need to replenish that fuel.
The first responders aren't immune to bitter cold temperatures, and that's especially true for firefighters, who can easily become covered in ice when trying to flush out flames. Anna Saunders shows us how one department in West Virginia takes extra steps to keep firefighters warm.
We got it and modified it, changed some things around.
On water rescue missions, it's meant to keep divers warm, but during the winter, this Glasgow Fire Department Swiftwater rescue truck also activates to keep first responders warm on scene.
We got a microwave, we got coffee pots and different things of that nature to keep the firemen or emergency personnel warm and get them warm so they can get back out and finish their duties that they have at hand.
Glasgow Fire Chief Marty Blankenship says it's ready to go anywhere to help their firefighters or others in the area stay warm on any large incidents.
There's many factors that you got to figure in. You got your trucks you got to worry about freezing, you got your personnel, the inclements of the weather with the personnel. Being the incident commander, there's a lot of things that you got to put into play and try to ensure that you keep things moving so you don't hinder the operations.
At the Charleston Fire Department, you'll find chains on the tires of all the trucks and firefighters often equipped with a change of warm clothes. But sometimes what happens out in the cold with water in the mix is something you can't really prepare for.
So the surfaces get very slick. And then the breakdown, when we go to breakdown, a lot of times our hoses will be frozen, and it's just very hard to overcome it. So it takes a lot of time to clean up, bring it back to the station, unthaw, and when we say unthaw, we're unthawing equipment and the firefighters. They take a beating out here in the cold weather.
Blankenship says the departments and emergency management stay in contact during events like this so everyone knows the supplies and trucks people can bring in.
We all collaborate, you know, and talk amongst ourselves and try to prepare the best we can.
Things are looking up for lovers of ice fishing in Wisconsin. Ice is finally starting to form on Green Bay area lakes. And while it's not fully ready yet, Eric Peterson reports folks are encouraged by the conditions.
On a very frigid morning on Lake Winnebago's Asylum Bay, anglers Jason Reimer and his friend David Tice braved the conditions.
Well, it's too cold to work, but not too cold to ice fish, so we're hoping to get out here and catch something.
The thrill of ice fishing, just trying to find those fish. It's been a late season, so
The itch is finally getting scratched a little bit to get out here.
On Tuesday, the two say Asylum Bay in Oshkosh had about 6 to 7 inches of ice. But it's a different story on the main part of the 132,000-acre lake.
Guys are out quite a ways, but I'm sure the middle's got some open spots yet.
At Fishtails Bait and Tackle, owner Corey Van Vonderen says the cold conditions arrived just in time.
This week we've actually made a lot of ice. I mean, this weather is what we've needed. You know, we're a month behind, but it's making ice quick.
Van Vonderen says changes in the forecast will have an impact.
If it gets warm next week and then cools off again, it could be beautiful out there. I mean, we could have some of the best conditions that we've seen in a long time. If it gets too warm and stays too warm, then it could be horrible.
Either way, the sturgeon spearing season begins in less than a month.
I don't think they're going to be taking vehicles out. I definitely think they're going to be able to get out on the lake. Four-wheelers, UTVs, stuff like that.
With these cold temperatures, it's going to freeze up pretty good. Whether or not we're going to get to drive on it, that's just a guess, you know, from here. So we're hoping.
You may not know this, but sometimes it can be snowing and the snow will not show up on weather radar. It's called ghost snow. It has nothing to do with Halloween. Birmingham meteorologist Evan Chikvara explained what it is in a post on his Facebook page.
All right, so getting a lot of reports of some light snow falling across Alabama. I want to show you quick. So nothing's really showing up. You got a little bit of bands really close to the radar showing up on either side. That could be some side lobe contamination from the radar beam. But needless to say, there's not much showing up out here, right? Well, let's go take a look outside. And we actually have some decent snow coming down. So you're thinking, well, why on earth are we not seeing this on radar? So by nature, these snowflakes, they're not as dense when they're in the clouds and when they precipitate. So the radar beam that's looking for objects in the clouds, they don't readily see these like they do water droplets or ice crystals. And so you get really no returns. And this is a very, very low ceiling, so our clouds are low. And this might not even be being picked up on the radar because of how low this is to the ground. Don't expect much accumulation, but something, because it is so cold and we've already had ice, we're going to see what little snow does fall accumulate at the surface because the ground's already cold. It's already had a lot of ice in many instances here, as you can see. Could easily, quickly, but yeah, so just some nice, you know, if it's going to be 16 degrees out, we might as well get a little snow out of it.
If you want to see more content like this, be sure to check us out on social media. We post the latest content from our team of meteorologists across the country. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms. Just search the National Weather Desk.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Skiers in Utah are happy about recent snowfall, but for ski resorts, sometimes there could be too much of a good thing when that snow is brand new. Christian Sita explains.
Freezing temperatures and high levels of snow, it's a winter wonderland for skiers and snowboarders.
Slow start this year, but I think we're there now.
This weekend storm certainly delivered.
Powder's a little bit heavy, heavier than we usually get, but it's nice.
Sarah Sherman with Snowbird Snow Resort tells us they saw 5 feet of snow in the last week.
That's a whole lot of snow, and people are really, really excited about that.
The fresh powder brought hundreds to shred the slopes, but not before a shutdown at a few canyons due to the high volume of snowfall.
Whenever we see snow and storms come in the way they did this last weekend, we really slow things down. You know, it's in conjunction with our snow safety teams, it's in conjunction with UDOT, who makes the call on road closures.
Turns out you can have too much of a good thing.
Last season, we had over 800 inches of snow, and we saw a lot of closures because of that. So you could argue there is a point where there's too much snow, but I think right now we're still seeing that on a day-to-day basis.
And if you're looking for more weather content, don't forget our podcast, Off the Radar. New episodes drop every Tuesday, and you can listen right now anywhere you get your podcast. Thank you for joining us. I'm meteorologist Matt Ritter. Make it a great Thursday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.